For years, the world has heard the story. A mother, a family, and a crime that shattered an entire nation. But behind every headline, behind every interview and every confession, lies the evidence that never speaks loudly but never lies. Tonight, we open the pages of the forensic record, the quiet, clinical truth written on the very body of a woman who deserved so much more. This isn't rumor. This isn't speculation. This is the science, the evidence, the reality of what investigators discovered when they examined Shanann Watts. And what those findings reveal is far more telling than any version Chris Watts ever gave. What really happened during those final moments? What did the medical examiner see that changed the entire direction of the case? And what truths were uncovered that the public rarely hears explained? Tonight we go inside the forensics, inside the autopsy, inside the truth the evidence refused to hide. Subscribe to Dark Crime Casefiles, where we expose the truth the world tried to bury, and no crime stays in the dark. For those who are new here, Shanann Watts was a mother, a wife, and a vibrant presence in her community. In 2018, her life and the lives of her two young daughters were tragically taken in a crime that shocked the nation. Chris Watts, her husband, quickly became the center of a devastating investigation. His confessions, his lies, and the evidence left behind painted a horrifying picture that unfolded piece by piece. Over the years, countless videos, articles, and documentaries have covered the case, but very few have examined the forensic evidence in depth. The autopsy reports, scene investigations, and medical findings hold details that the public rarely hears explained, and they reveal a story far more chilling than what headlines ever conveyed. Today, we cut through the speculation, the rumors, and the myths, and we go straight to what the evidence truly shows. Every detail, every finding, every piece of forensic truth that investigators relied upon to piece together the final hours of Shanann Watts' life. When investigators first examined the Watts home, the questions were countless, but the answers had to come from one source: science. Autopsies are not about sensationalism. They are about uncovering the truth that no one can hide. Every cut, every mark, every trace of evidence tells a story that words alone cannot. Forensic pathologists are trained to look beyond appearances. They examine tissue, organs, and toxicology to determine not only how someone died, but also when and under what circumstances. They search for evidence of trauma, struggle, or restraint, and they identify details that can either confirm or refute statements made by witnesses, or, in this case, the person closest to the victims. In Shanann Watts' case, investigators needed answers to critical questions. How did she die? Could the timeline be verified? Were there signs of a struggle? Was there anything the perpetrator had tried to hide? The autopsy would serve as the keystone of the investigation. It would either support the accounts given or reveal inconsistencies that no confession could ever fully cover. Tonight, we explore what the examiners were looking for, what they found, and how those findings would ultimately shape the path to truth. The autopsy of Shanann Watts was meticulous, methodical, and unforgiving in its precision. Every detail mattered, because the investigators needed to reconstruct not just what happened but the exact sequence of events that led to her death. The medical examiner began with a thorough external examination. They recorded all physical findings, her general condition, any visible injuries, and subtle signs of trauma. Even minor abrasions, bruises, or marks were documented, because each could indicate a struggle or reveal attempts to conceal evidence. Next came the internal examination. Each organ, each tissue sample, was analyzed to understand both the mechanism of death and the timing. Toxicology reports were conducted to check for any substances that might have impaired her or influenced the events that unfolded. Every result was cross-referenced with her medical history, ensuring nothing was overlooked. What forensic science revealed was chilling in its clarity. While avoiding graphic sensationalism, the reports confirmed that her death was intentional and rapid, and the findings aligned with the investigators' timeline. Each element of the autopsy helped validate or contradict statements given by the perpetrator. The precision of forensic pathology transforms silence into truth. In Shanann's case, the autopsy did not just confirm death, it illuminated the pathway to justice. Every observation, every sample, and every report was a piece of a puzzle that no one could falsify. As we move forward, we'll explore not only the findings themselves but also what they reveal about the timeline, the nature of the crime, and the discrepancies between the evidence and the lies that were told. This is where science and investigation converge, and where the hidden truths begin to emerge, slowly, methodically, undeniably. While the autopsy provides the raw data, the interpretations are where the true understanding begins. For Shanann Watts, the medical examiner's analysis did more than document her death. It contextualized it, connecting the physical evidence to the timeline of events and the actions that led to her final moments. The examiners were able to rule in several critical details. They confirmed the cause of death, verified the rapidity of the event, and identified the specific mechanisms that led to fatality. Every measurement, every microscopic finding, corroborated a precise sequence of events, helping investigators reconstruct the timeline with scientific certainty. Equally important, the autopsy ruled out factors that might have clouded the investigation. No natural illness or accidental cause contributed to her death. Toxicology results confirmed there were no substances that could have impaired her capacity to act or defend herself, eliminating any alternative explanations that could have distracted the investigation. The medical examiner's conclusions were reached methodically, combining observed physical evidence, microscopic analysis, and biochemical data. They distinguished between what could be confirmed scientifically and what remained uncertain. Certain aspects, like the exact timing of some injuries, required careful interpretation, but these uncertainties were small and they did not obscure the broader truth. The crime was deliberate, premeditated, and irreversible. In this segment, we see the power of forensic science. It transforms bodies into evidence, silence into testimony, and observation into certainty. The interpretations of Shanann Watts' autopsy do not merely explain how she died, they illuminate the hidden truths of a crime that the perpetrator attempted to disguise. Every conclusion drawn by the examiner helped guide investigators closer to the undeniable reality of what transpired that tragic night. Beyond the autopsy, the crime scene itself became a crucial chapter in uncovering the truth. Every corner, every object, and every trace of activity was meticulously documented by investigators, because in forensic science, the environment speaks as loudly as the body. From the Watts family home to the surrounding areas, forensic teams collected fingerprints, fibers, and other trace evidence, mapping movements and actions that contradicted initial statements. These findings helped establish not just what happened, but when it happened, providing critical context for the autopsy results. Even the smallest items played a role. Everyday objects, once overlooked, became silent witnesses to a crime meticulously hidden. Blood patterns, signs of struggle, and items displaced within the home told a story of deception, fear, and deliberate concealment. Each piece of evidence was cross-referenced against Shanann's autopsy, creating a timeline that left little room for doubt. Importantly, investigators also considered the children. Their location, any trace evidence around them, and how the environment reflected the unfolding events provided insights into the sequence and timing of the crime. At every step, forensic science offered clarity where human memory and testimony could not. Through this painstaking work, the scene and the body together revealed a narrative that the perpetrator had tried to control. It was here, in the meticulous collection and analysis of physical evidence, that investigators could begin to reconcile lies with reality and slowly reconstruct the truth of Shanann Watts' final hours. Chris Watts' words to investigators, the media, and the world painted a version of events he wanted others to believe, a story carefully constructed, but riddled with contradictions. Yet when those statements were measured against forensic reality, the truth began to emerge with unrelenting clarity. He claimed that Shanann had left the home voluntarily, that there had been no struggle, and that he had returned to normal life believing nothing was amiss. But forensic evidence told a starkly different story. Physical findings in the home, trace evidence, and Shanann's own autopsy revealed a timeline and sequence of events that directly contradicted his narrative. Where he said there were no signs of resistance, investigators documented marks, disturbances, and movements that proved otherwise. Where he claimed spontaneity, the evidence suggested premeditation and a carefully orchestrated deception. Every fib was illuminated by scientific observation, leaving no corner of his story untouched. The tension here is what captivates audiences, the collision between lies and undeniable fact. Viewers are drawn in because they witness the unraveling, how calculated deception collapses under the weight of forensic truth. By comparing each statement with the hard, methodical findings, we can separate what was true, what was manipulated, and what was wholly fabricated. This is the power of forensic science. It speaks where words fail, exposes where lies hide, and tells a story no confession alone can fully convey. Tonight, we trace that collision, step by step, claim by claim, revealing the undeniable reality that investigators relied upon to piece together the final hours of Shanann Watts' life. Forensic evidence does more than confirm what happened. It reveals when it happened. In the Watts case, every trace, every mark, and every microscopic detail contributed to a timeline that investigators could rely on with scientific precision. By analyzing physical evidence from the scene alongside Shanann's autopsy, investigators were able to piece together a sequence of events. The timing of injuries, combined with blood patterns, trace evidence, and even digital timestamps, created a detailed chronology of the final hours. Every second mattered, because it allowed experts to test Chris Watts' statements against reality. This timeline exposed discrepancies that would become impossible to ignore. Actions he claimed occurred at one time did not align with forensic markers. Windows of opportunity for deception became evident, and investigators could pinpoint the moments where his narrative failed to match the scientific record. For viewers, this is where the puzzle comes together. The autopsy, the scene, and the physical evidence merge into a coherent sequence, revealing not just what happened, but when. Each discovery strengthens the truth that the perpetrator tried to hide, and each fact pulls back another layer of deception. It is in this meticulous reconstruction that forensic science proves its power, illuminating the invisible, confirming the undeniable, and allowing investigators, and now the public, to understand the final hours of Shanann Watts with a clarity no confession could ever provide. The Watts case captured the world's attention, and with that attention came countless stories, assumptions, and misconceptions. Headlines painted a picture of events, social media spread theories, and documentaries often dramatized the narrative. But when the dust settled, the forensic evidence told a different, far more precise story. Many believed Shanann's final moments were chaotic or confused. The science shows a sequence that was tragically deliberate and measured. Some claimed injuries were accidental or indicative of a struggle that didn't occur. Autopsy and scene reports disproved these assumptions. Even timelines reported in the media often conflicted with the forensic markers that investigators relied upon. Myths about what Chris Watts said, what Shanann did, and the role of the children in the final hours have circulated widely. Yet the physical evidence, the autopsy results, and the scene analysis provide a reality grounded in fact, not speculation. These findings separate truth from conjecture and expose the gaps in the stories the public was told. This is where forensic science becomes the ultimate mythbuster. It reveals what actually happened, not what people wanted to believe. By comparing popular narratives with scientific reality, we can see the story as it truly unfolded, stripping away exaggeration, assumption, and dramatization. It's important to see this clearly. It's what allows us to honor Shanann and her children, to respect the investigation, and to see the unfiltered truth behind one of the most infamous cases in recent history. Forensic evidence is powerful, but it has its limits. While Shanann Watts' autopsy and the scene investigation revealed precise details about the how and when of her death, there are aspects that science alone cannot answer. For example, forensics cannot reveal intent in its entirety. It can document injuries, timelines, and environmental clues, but the why, the motivations behind each action, remains in the realm of human psychology, interviews, and legal interpretation. Understanding Chris Watts' mindset, his internal calculations, and the emotional manipulation he exercised is beyond the reach of autopsy reports and blood patterns. Similarly, science cannot fully reconstruct every interaction, every fleeting thought, or every silent moment in the home. While trace evidence, fingerprints, and digital data provide a detailed map, the small nuances, the hesitation, the fear, the fleeting moments of awareness remain inaccessible. These elements can only be inferred, not proven, and must be treated carefully when interpreting the story. Even so, the gaps in forensic knowledge are not weaknesses, they are boundaries that guide investigators. By understanding what can and cannot be determined, experts focus on verifiable facts while cautiously approaching areas that require human testimony or psychological evaluation. It's important to see this clearly. Forensic science, while precise and unyielding in many respects, works alongside investigation, human observation, and expert analysis to build the full picture. It is a partnership between cold, hard evidence and careful interpretation that ultimately brings clarity to the tragic events surrounding Shanann Watts' death. As we reach the end of this detailed examination, the forensic evidence speaks with a clarity that words alone cannot match. It confirms the tragic reality of Shanann Watts' final hours, her life taken violently, her struggles documented in the very body that investigators examined so meticulously. The sequence of events, reconstructed from both the autopsy and the crime scene, reveals a chilling timeline. Each moment, each movement, each trace of evidence aligns to show how the tragedy unfolded, minute by minute. The science leaves no room for ambiguity. What was claimed, what was fabricated, and what was real can now be seen with undeniable precision. When it comes to Chris Watts, the evidence exposes inconsistencies, contradictions, and deception. It demonstrates the deliberate actions he took to cover his crime and highlights the lies that could not withstand scientific scrutiny. The facts do not just tell a story, they reveal his manipulation, his premeditation, and the truth investigators had to uncover piece by piece. Yet, even with such clarity, some questions remain. The full extent of his thoughts, the silent moments before the tragedy, and the emotional currents that ran through that home can never be fully captured. These mysteries remind us that forensic science can illuminate, but it cannot replace human experience or compassion. Ultimately, the evidence preserves Shanann's story. It honors her life, her children, and the reality of what happened. And while we may never know every detail, what is undeniable is the truth revealed by science, painful, precise, and unflinching. It is this truth that demands we remember, reflect, and never let her story fade. Before we close, it's important to remember the lives that were lost. Shanann Watts, age 34, a devoted mother, wife, and friend. Bella Watts, just 4 years old, is full of energy and curiosity. Celeste, known as Cece, is only 3, a bright and innocent soul whose laughter could light up a room. These were more than names or statistics. They were people with dreams, love, and the potential to shape the world around them. Tonight, we honor them, not the actions of the perpetrator, not the headlines, but the lives that truly mattered. In remembering Shanann, Bella, and Celeste, we acknowledge their humanity, their presence, and the void left behind. Their story deserves respect, reflection, and remembrance. And it is in that remembrance that their legacy continues. Forensic truth matters because it transcends opinion, rumor, and deception. It provides an unflinching account of reality, allowing us to see what truly happened, even when words fail or lies attempt to obscure it. These details protect future victims. By understanding the mechanisms of crime, investigators, families, and communities are better equipped to prevent, detect, and respond to similar tragedies. Every autopsy, every trace, every meticulous note matters, not just for the case at hand, but for the broader pursuit of justice. Even years later, the Watts case continues to affect people. The loss of Shanann, Bella, and Cece is a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that can lurk behind familiar faces. By examining the evidence carefully, we honor them, learn from their story, and ensure that the truth endures. Thank you for watching Dark Crime Case Files. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told with truth and respect, consider subscribing. Your support helps us continue to shed light on cases that cannot be forgotten. Subscribe to Dark Crime Case Files, where no crime stays in the dark.